What would you do if you married the man of your dreams only to discover on your wedding night that he had a hidden secret? One so personal yet devastating, it could threaten your future together. This is the story of a wedding that began like a fairy tale but ended in tragedy within 24 hours. A tale of deep secrets, fragile egos, and a betrayal so shocking it left an entire community reeling. Judge Daniel Harper, a man celebrated for his fairness, morality, and staunch defense of marital vows, was accused of murdering his bride, Sarah Campbell, a brilliant and fiercely independent tech entrepreneur. Their whirlwind romance, marked by opulence, devotion, and shared faith, culminated in an extravagant wedding that everyone believed was the start of a perfect life. But behind the blissful facade lay truths neither could have anticipated. On their wedding night, instead of the intimate union Sarah envisioned, she uncovered a truth Daniel had guarded for years. It was a secret so deeply intertwined with his identity and pride that its exposure unraveled their relationship in a single evening. What would drive a man who stood for honor and integrity to commit such a heinous act? Was it desperation, shame, or did Daniel Harper harbor a darker side that no one had ever seen? As we delve into this harrowing case, make sure to subscribe to Shocking True Crime Stories. You won't believe what happens next. Judge Daniel Harper seemed to have it all. At 38, he was a rising star in Texas's legal system, admired for his sharp intellect, moral convictions, and devout religious faith. In his role as a divorce court judge, Daniel delivered impassioned speeches about commitment, loyalty, and the sanctity of marriage, earning both respect and trepidation from those who stood before him. Yet, despite his polished exterior, Daniel carried a deeply personal burden. Growing up in a conservative religious household in Austin, he had been taught to live by strict moral standards. But behind the image of perfection was a secret he'd spent years concealing, a rare hormonal condition that caused severe erectile dysfunction. This condition left him racked with shame, fearing judgment from society and his faith. For years, he avoided intimacy altogether, terrified that revealing his condition would destroy the flawless reputation he'd worked so hard to build. Sarah Campbell, at 36, was everything Daniel was not. Bold, fearless, and unapologetically authentic, she had risen to the top of the male-dominated tech world through sheer brilliance and determination. From her modest upbringing in Dallas, Sarah transformed a small startup into a multi-million-dollar empire, earning her respect and admiration in an industry often stacked against her. Sarah valued honesty and transparency above all else, principles she applied to both her professional and personal life. Beneath her confident exterior, however, was a woman who longed for a partner who shared her faith and ambition. Her desire for a genuine connection led her to church, where she met Daniel Harper. Their relationship appeared like a modern fairy tale, a powerful, successful woman falling for a principled, charismatic man of faith. The couple's courtship was swift, intentional, and entirely abstinent, reflecting Daniel's firm belief in reserving intimacy for marriage. Their union seemed perfect on the surface, a blend of shared values and mutual admiration. Yet on their wedding night, the cracks in the foundation began to show. Sarah had dreamed of a passionate celebration of their vows, but instead, she was met with a truth Daniel had kept from her, his condition. The revelation was a shattering blow. For Sarah, who valued openness and honesty above all else, Daniel's secrecy felt like a betrayal of the trust they had built. For Daniel, the exposure of his most closely guarded secret ignited a firestorm of shame and anger. Within hours, their perfect image unraveled, leading to a confrontation that would have fatal consequences. Was this tragedy born out of desperation, pride, or something more sinister? How could a man who championed the sanctity of marriage commit such an unimaginable act? Stay tuned as we uncover the twists and turns of this chilling case, a story that proves even the most perfect exteriors can hide the darkest secrets. To the outside world, their relationship was the epitome of harmony. Daniel, the principled judge, and Sarah, the fearless entrepreneur, seemed like a power couple destined for greatness. Together, they exuded an aura of perfection. Yet, their shared faith and public image concealed an imbalance. While Sarah entered their union with unwavering trust, Daniel brought with him carefully concealed secrets. Their romance was celebrated as nothing short of divine. Friends and family called it a match made in heaven, marveling at the bond between the righteous judge and the groundbreaking tech mogul. But beneath the glossy surface, fault lines were forming. Daniel's fear of vulnerability and Sarah's devotion to complete transparency were on an inevitable collision course. By the time their grand wedding arrived in May 2023, the cracks had already begun to show, though no one else could see them. The celebration was a spectacle of elegance and love, captivating Dallas's elite. It was a day that promised a new chapter of faith, success, and everlasting happiness. Yet within 24 hours, the illusion of perfection would shatter, revealing a truth too dark to ignore. May 20th, 2023, began as the culmination of a dream, a romantic journey that had captured the admiration of everyone around them. After a lavish ceremony steeped in grandeur, Daniel Harper and Sarah Campbell retired to their honeymoon suite, a secluded haven of luxury in one of the most prestigious hotels in Dallas. For their guests, the evening was the perfect conclusion to a fairy tale romance, one built on faith, ambition, and the promise of enduring love. But behind the closed doors of their suite, a very different reality began to take shape. The night started as one might expect, with soft laughter, gentle toasts of champagne, and the flicker of candlelight casting a warm glow over the room. Yet, Daniel appeared uneasy, his usual composed demeanor giving way to visible tension. Sarah, assuming it was simply the nervousness of a man experiencing intimacy for the first time, tried to reassure him. She admired his decision to wait until marriage and saw it as a testament to his faith and character. As the evening progressed toward intimacy, the first cracks in their perfect picture emerged. Sarah noticed something unexpected, a detail that caught her off guard. Daniel's physical size in an intimate sense was far smaller than she had anticipated. Surprised but determined not to let it matter, she reminded herself that their love transcended such trivialities. She leaned in, kissed him tenderly, and sought to move forward, choosing to focus on the man she loved rather than his physical insecurities. But then, everything came to a halt. Despite Sarah's encouragement, Daniel froze, unable to respond. At first, she assumed it was simply nerves, a natural reaction for someone new to intimacy. She whispered reassurances, her voice kind and steady. "It's okay," she murmured. "This is new for both of us. We'll figure it out together." But her gentle words didn't ease the growing tension in the room. Daniel's discomfort was evident, his breathing uneven as he withdrew further into himself. The warmth that had filled the suite only moments before was replaced by a heavy, oppressive silence. Confused but patient, Sarah tried again, offering quiet encouragement to help him relax. Yet Daniel remained unresponsive, his shame palpable. The air between them thickened with unspoken fear and frustration, leaving Sarah to grapple with the sudden shift in their dynamic. Finally, unable to bear the silence, she asked him directly. With his back turned and his voice trembling, Daniel finally broke his silence, revealing the truth he had kept buried for years. "I have erectile dysfunction," he confessed, his words barely audible. "It's a hormonal condition. I've known about it for a long time." Sarah stood frozen, her mind racing to process the weight of his admission. It wasn't just the revelation of his condition that left her reeling. It was the lie, the deception. The man she had trusted implicitly, the man who had built his entire life around integrity and virtue, had hidden something so fundamental from her. Struggling to contain her shock, she asked the question burning in her mind. "Why didn't you tell me? Why let me believe in a future built on love, intimacy, and trust, knowing this all along?" Daniel's response was desperate, his voice cracking under the strain. He begged for her understanding, explaining that he hadn't told her because he was terrified of losing her. But more than that, he feared what the truth would do to his carefully cultivated image. As a respected divorce court judge, his entire career revolved around the sanctity of marriage, and the thought of his condition becoming public was unbearable to him. To Sarah, however, his confession felt like a betrayal of the highest order. She had built her life and her success on the principles of trust and honesty, values she upheld in every aspect of her life and relationships. She had admired Daniel for his unwavering principles, but now all she felt was humiliation and a deep sense of betrayal. The man she thought she knew had blindsided her. In the midst of her hurt and anger, the words she truly felt spilled out. "I want an annulment. I can't live like this." Her words hit Daniel like a physical blow. He stared at her, his carefully maintained composure crumbling as he realized the gravity of her statement. His voice, usually so calm and measured, now cracked with desperation as he begged her to reconsider. He pleaded with her not to expose his secret, not to tear apart the life he had worked so tirelessly to build. But Sarah didn't waver. For her, the foundation of their relationship had already been shattered. Trust had been replaced by deception, and she couldn't imagine moving forward on a bedrock of lies. The argument escalated. What began as a vulnerable moment between newlyweds spiraled into a heated confrontation neither of them could have anticipated. The picture-perfect marriage that the world had admired was unraveling, barely 24 hours after it had begun. As the hours dragged on, the tension in the room became unbearable. Eventually, Sarah, emotionally drained, drifted off to sleep in the early hours of May 21, 2023. Meanwhile, Daniel was left alone with his thoughts, consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. His pride was deeply bruised, his career and reputation felt like they were teetering on the edge, and his darkest secret, the one he had guarded so fiercely, was now exposed. What happened next was something no one could have foreseen. Was Sarah justified in asking for an annulment mere hours after their wedding, or should she have shown greater compassion and patience? And what drove Daniel Harper, a man who had devoted his life to upholding morality and justice, to commit an act that would forever tarnish his name? In the oppressive silence of the luxurious honeymoon suite at the Regal Grand Hotel, the events of that night would soon turn a troubled marriage into a tragedy that shook an entire community. The ceremony, attended by Dallas's elite, had promised a fairy tale beginning for the couple. But what should have been a celebration of love had quickly spiraled into shame, betrayal, and desperation. Earlier that evening, Sarah Campbell had discovered Daniel's most humiliating secret, the condition he had fought so hard to keep hidden. His erectile dysfunction, caused by a rare hormonal disorder, was no longer a secret. Sarah's reaction struck Daniel more deeply than he could have imagined. Her disgust, her demand for an annulment, and the impending destruction of his reputation played like an endless loop in his mind. To Daniel, Sarah's words felt like more than just the end of his marriage. They felt like the end of everything. His career, his image, his identity as a man of integrity, all seemed to crumble before him. By 2 a.m., while Sarah slept, Daniel made his decision. From the bottom of his suitcase, concealed beneath neatly folded clothes, he retrieved a prescription bottle of sedatives he had been prescribed months earlier. At the suite's wet bar, he ground the pills into a fine white powder, ensuring they dissolved easily. He poured 2 glasses of champagne and mixed the powder into one of them. His hand trembled as he placed the tainted glass on Sarah's bedside table. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Daniel gently shook her awake. His voice was calm, soft, measured. "Sarah, I know you're upset. Let's try again, just for tonight. Let's celebrate new beginnings." Exhausted from the emotional turmoil of the evening, Sarah hesitated before accepting the glass he offered. Maybe it was fatigue, or maybe a hint of pity for the man she had married that led her to take a sip. Unaware of the poison hidden within, she drank slowly, and within minutes, her eyes grew heavy, her speech slurred. Her body relaxed against the pillows. Daniel watched, unmoving, as she fell into unconsciousness. For a moment, doubt flickered in his mind. The weight of what he was about to do pressed on his conscience, but the fear of humiliation, the fear of losing everything, drowned out any remaining shred of morality. Standing up, he walked to the edge of the bed and gripped one of the suite's plush pillows. It felt soft, almost comforting in his hands. Steeling himself, Daniel leaned over Sarah's still form and pressed the pillow firmly over her face. She barely twitched. The sedatives had done their job. Time seemed to stretch on endlessly as Daniel held the pillow in place, his breath quick and shallow. Finally, her body stilled, and the room was engulfed in eerie silence. He even wiped Sarah's champagne glass with the corner of his shirt before carefully placing it back. Returning to the bed, he arranged her body with precision, tucking her under the covers as if she had peacefully passed away in her sleep. He smoothed her hair and wiped beads of sweat from his brow with a trembling hand. The suite, once filled with joy and celebration, now felt heavy with silence and finality. Satisfied with his cover-up, Daniel took a deep breath and moved to the mirror, rehearsing the story he would tell the hotel staff. He would claim that Sarah had been unwell the night before, and when he woke in the early hours of the morning, he found her lifeless. Her death would seem sudden and tragic, a terrible shock for him as the grieving husband. At precisely 6:37 a.m., Daniel dialed the front desk. His voice cracked convincingly as he spoke. "My wife? I think she's gone. She wasn't feeling well last night and now she's not breathing. Please send help." Minutes later, hotel staff and paramedics arrived. They found Daniel seated beside Sarah's body, clutching her lifeless hand, his eyes red and puffy from fake tears. He sobbed, playing the part of the devastated husband perfectly. To anyone who saw him, it appeared as if tragedy had struck without warning. As paramedics wheeled Sarah's body out of the suite, Daniel followed behind, his head bowed in mourning. At that moment, he believed his secret was safe, but secrets, especially those built on desperation and lies, never stay buried for long. The investigation that followed would soon unravel everything. Daniel's story was simple. His wife, Sarah Campbell, had died peacefully in her sleep during their honeymoon. But from the moment investigators stepped into the suite, cracks began to appear in his carefully constructed lie. The first clue came during Sarah's autopsy. The medical examiner found no signs of natural causes. Instead, toxicology reports revealed a high concentration of a sedative in her bloodstream, far more than could have been accidental. This discovery immediately raised suspicions. Why would a healthy woman, less than 24 hours into her marriage, need such a heavy dose of medication in the honeymoon suite? Crime scene investigators uncovered even more disturbing evidence. They found signs of deliberate preparation, a chilling level of premeditation. Sarah's champagne glass was just one of many details that suggested her death was anything but natural. Traces of the sedative were later discovered, though Daniel had gone to great lengths to cover his tracks. The areas where the sedative had been found were rinsed clean, but not thoroughly enough. Tiny chemical residues still clung to the grooves and rim of the champagne glass, detected through advanced forensic analysis. Even the bottle of champagne, hastily wiped down, still carried faint fingerprints belonging to Daniel. Investigators pieced together the timeline with the help of hotel surveillance footage. Around 2:30 a.m., Daniel was seen leaving the suite for a brief period. He claimed he had gone to the lobby bar to fetch a glass of water, appearing calm and unaffected. This minor detail seemed insignificant at first, but it perfectly aligned with the time Sarah had been poisoned. What investigators found most disturbing, however, was the calculated effort to stage Sarah's death. When questioned by hotel staff after her body was discovered at 6:30 a.m., Daniel calmly stated that he had woken up to find his wife unresponsive and assumed she had passed away peacefully in her sleep. He repeated this story to the detectives with an unsettling composure. However, hotel staff reported critical details that contradicted his version of events. The sheets on the bed were immaculately arranged, almost too neat, too perfect for someone who had supposedly died in their sleep. And while Sarah lay lifeless in bed, Daniel had already showered, dressed, and composed himself, before even summoning help. Piece by piece, investigators built their case. The presence of the sedative, the staged scene, and Daniel's eerily calm demeanor painted a clear and damning picture. This wasn't a sudden tragedy. It was a premeditated act. On June 5, 2023, law enforcement officers arrested Judge Daniel Harper at his home. His polished exterior and calm demeanor shattered as he was handcuffed and escorted to a waiting patrol car. For a man who had spent his life upholding the sanctity of marriage, his desperation to protect his reputation had led to the ultimate betrayal. The trial of Judge Daniel Harper captivated the nation, sparking heated debates about societal expectations, fragile masculinity, and the betrayal of trust. The courtroom, filled with journalists, legal experts, and onlookers, became the stage for a chilling examination of Daniel's actions and his motives. The prosecution laid out a damning case, arguing that this was not a crime of passion or emotional collapse, but cold-blooded, premeditated murder. They pointed to Daniel's meticulous planning, including searches on his phone and laptop for lethal doses of prescription drugs, as well as how to induce death. Daniel had also searched for terms like look natural and best sedatives for sleep, which suggested a methodical approach to his crime. Pharmacy records revealed that Daniel had obtained the exact sedative used to poison Sarah weeks before the wedding. Combined with the forensic evidence, traces of the sedative in the champagne glass, the wiped-down bottle, and the staged scene, the prosecution painted a damning picture of a man who valued his reputation as a judge and devout man of faith above his wife. Life. Daniel's defense team, however, framed him as a victim of immense societal pressure. They argued that Daniel was a man trapped by unrealistic expectations, forced to uphold an image of masculinity, perfection, and purity. They claimed he had suffered a devastating emotional breakdown when Sarah rejected him and threatened to expose his condition, a fear that allegedly pushed him to act impulsively. According to the defense, this wasn't a calculated killer. This was a man broken by shame and desperation. Legal experts weighed in, highlighting the broader themes of the case: societal pressures, the dangers of hidden insecurities, and the extreme lengths people will go to in order to protect their image. Others criticized Daniel's actions as nothing more than narcissistic crime, a man so entitled that he took his wife's life to preserve his reputation. The trial lasted 6 weeks, with emotions running high. During closing arguments, as the jury deliberated, the weight of the evidence was undeniable. On August 14, 2023, the jury returned a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder. The judge, delivering the sentence, was unflinching. "Your actions were deliberate and callous, prioritizing your career and image over a human life," he said. Daniel Harper was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For a man who had once stood as a symbol of justice, integrity, and faith, Daniel's fall from grace was both tragic and horrifying. His courtroom, where he had once passed judgment on others, now served as the place where his own fate was sealed. The case of Daniel Harper and Sarah Campbell left an indelible mark on the affluent Dallas community and beyond. The story of a marriage that lasted less than 24 hours, ending in betrayal, murder, and devastation, captivated the nation and left everyone searching for answers. For a community that had admired Daniel as a man of integrity and faith, the revelation of his dark secret and violent actions shattered their perception of him. Friends, colleagues, and parishioners struggled to reconcile the image of the honorable judge with the man who had suffocated his wife in a desperate attempt to hide his shame. Sarah Campbell's family was left mourning the tragic loss of a brilliant, self-made woman whose trust and love were repaid with unspeakable violence. But this case became more than just a courtroom drama. It ignited a national conversation about societal pressures, fragile masculinity, and the dangerous lengths people will go to protect their secrets. It forced many to confront difficult questions. How far would someone go to maintain the illusion of perfection? Could this tragedy have been avoided if Daniel had been honest about his struggles from the start? The trial laid bare the dangers of pride and deceit, serving as a cautionary tale about the destruction that arises when we build our lives on appearances rather than truth. When shame is allowed to fester in silence until it explodes into irreversible consequences, the damage can be unimaginable. In the end, this story is not just about a marriage that ended in murder. It's about the devastating cost of desperation and dishonesty. It serves as a sobering reminder that even the most polished facades can hide cracks beneath the surface, and when those cracks are ignored, they can lead to unimaginable violence. The tragedy of Daniel Harper and Sarah Campbell leaves behind a legacy of questions, ones that may never fully be answered. But it also carries a warning. Secrets have a way of surfacing, and the price of protecting them can be far greater than anyone could ever imagine. If this story shocked you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Shocking True Crime Stories. We'll be back with more cases that reveal the darkest truths behind seemingly perfect lives. Stay safe, and remember, secrets always find their way to the surface.